Tyrone was my son. He was a family man, you know. And I see him laying there, and I go to him, but he's not responsive or nothing. And I'm, Tyrone, you okay? Tyrone, talk to me.
People were yelling, screaming, arguing. Police had no idea what had happened.
They kind of put two and two together that he got pinned against the wall.
She is completely in shock, and she's yelling, "Get up, Tyrone, get up, please, get up."
He would have marks on him from prior fights. They were in a tumultuous relationship.
I wound up getting in touch with Homicide and told them I have everything on film.
That video pretty much told the entire story.
She said, "You are not going to walk away from me," and the worst happened.
It's Thanksgiving weekend 2011 in Philadelphia. At almost 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, multiple calls come into 911 from the 2400 block of Moore Street in South Philly.
By several 911 calls coming in, a report of a car that struck a building nearby in the South Philadelphia area. Officers don't have information as to how many people are hurt, how significant this crash is, so they're responding to the scene, not sure what they're going to come up upon when they arrive.
I thought it was an auto accident with injuries, which I've dealt with thousands of times.
The responding officers find a chaotic scene.
This crash was so loud that people in the neighborhood came rushing outside immediately.
I see this car in the middle of a lot that apparently went through like a barnyard fence.
It appears the vehicle then struck the brick wall of a townhouse.
The wall had chips in the brick, which I thought were from the impact of the car. It was probably about 5 to 10 feet from the side of a house. So sitting there with the headlights on.
Officers pushed through the crowd to get closer.
I got people out right now yelling and screaming and stuff like this, and I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, what happened?
There are no occupants inside the vehicle, but they spot a man lying on the ground in front of it.
There is one man that suffered significant injuries. He was hit by this car and pushed into the wall.
I kind of put two and two together that he got pinned against the wall, and then the car backed out, and he just fell over.
What brought people out on the street is the noise. You hear that crash. It's a very distinctive noise, especially when it's hitting brick. The people that were coming outside, these were actually relatives and close friends, so they were able to quickly tell police who the victim was. They identified him as Tyrone.
A woman kneels on the ground, cradling 28-year-old Tyrone Taylor in her arms.
Police realized that this woman is Tyrone's wife, Keisha Jones.
She is completely in shock, and she's yelling, "Get up, Tyrone, get up, please, get up."
Tyrone Taylor Jr. was born on June 29, 1983. He was raised in South Philly.
Tyrone Taylor came from a huge, loving family. He was one of many siblings.
My son Tyrone, he was a wonderful child. He was a good big brother. He took his little ones underhand and, he taught them and, they got along very well with his sisters and brothers. He was very well liked. Everyone loved Tyrone.
Tyrone graduated from Southern High School. He was a responsible young man. He went into the workforce.
Tyrone began working construction jobs, but dreamed of one day becoming a detective.
Which was a good thing. He worked it, and I was just very proud of him.
Because Tyrone was such a fun personality, he really got along with people. And by people, he was really a great bachelor. He loved his time with the ladies.
Then next thing you know, he tells me I'm going to be a grandfather. So I was happy about that.
He had a great time as a young man. He also had a few children along the way, but he hadn't really settled down. He always was waiting for the right one to come along that he could really build a life with.
In 2004, Tyrone met the stunning 23-year-old Keisha Jones.
He was really attracted to her beauty, but she was a single mother of 2 children, and he really fell in love with the way she loved her children and mothered them.
Tyrone also loved Keisha's children.
Tyrone stepped into Keisha's life and her life became easier. He made it better for not only her, but for the children as well.
They were inseparable. They spent every minute together, and within 3 months, they were engaged.
Just a short time later, they found out that Keisha was pregnant. And not only was she pregnant, but she was pregnant with twins.
But the happiness was short-lived.
The future looked so bright for these two until something from Tyrone's past caught up with him, and he ended up in jail.
He was in possession of a controlled substance, something that I might add is legal now in this year, but Tyrone was arrested and sent to county jail.
Now, it was only a few months, but it really put a major stress on Keisha. She was going back and forth visiting him, trying to figure out how she could help him, and also wondering how is she going to raise 2 babies alone?
So this is a man that went from working every day caring for his family to having to sit still for 4 months' time, while his woman, his fiance, was on the outside being a mom, holding it down for him, and pregnant at the same time.
While Tyrone was away, Keisha went into labor. 3 months early.
Her twins were born. One left fighting for her life, and her second twin actually passed away.
Soon after the birth of her baby girl, who turned out to be healthy and happy, Tyrone was trying so hard to make it up to her, and he did everything in his power to be a wonderful father and provider.
In 2007, Tyrone and Keisha welcomed another child into the world. He had a son, and he was there for Keisha, and he was there as the father and took care of his family. In 2008, they finally made it to the altar and got married in Vegas.
He was a family man, you know. He did what he had to do.
But just 3 years later, Keisha holds Tyrone in her arms as he fights for his life after being hit by a vehicle. An ambulance arrives. EMTs recognize that his injuries are life-threatening.
So they're giving CPR, trying to save this man's life at this point.
Patrol officers try to keep the crowd at bay.
It's a chaotic scene, especially in this case because he did live in the neighborhood. He had family in the neighborhood. So they came out right away.
I was laying up in the bed, actually asleep, and somebody was like beating on my door. It was my brother, and he told me Tyrone was hit by a car. So I throw my clothes on and I rush around there, and I see him laying there, and I go to him, and he's not responsive or nothing, and I'm, Tyrone, you okay? Tyrone, talk to me. And then the cops come and they tell me to back up.
It was just getting crazy out there. It was just getting crazy. So I called for more units.
There's people arguing, there's people out in the street. At this point, you don't know who's hurt, who's involved in this crash, who's responsible for the crash.
As detectives, we have to try to be aware of that because we need to get our job done and keep the scene secure, but we have to understand that there's, high emotions out there.
As the officers try to control the chaos, they hear a recurring call from the crowd.
They're yelling. They're saying things like, she did this. She hit him. We can't believe she killed him.
In the early morning hours of November 27, 2011, police are on the scene of a car crash in South Philly that left Tyrone Taylor gravely injured.
He was hit by this car and pushed into the wall.
And there was a vehicle, it was about maybe 10 feet away from the wall. And there was the victim lying on the ground, obviously suffered severe trauma.
There was so many people out there. Everybody in the neighborhood. And I mean, they crying and, oh my God.
EMTs do their best to save him. But Tyrone's injuries are too severe.
He's laying on his back and just saw the breath just coming up, like not with a burst of air. It was just seeping out of his mouth, and checked for a pulse, and there was no pulse there. So at that point, I'm like, he's not with us any longer.
Tyrone had suffered such severe injuries when that vehicle hit him that he was already dead.
The realization that Tyrone is gone spreads through the crowd.
This is the neighborhood that he grew up in, and these people are angry.
Especially Tyrone's father.
Officers were holding him back. Oh, I'd be livid too. You know what I'm saying? No doubt Dad was being held back.
It took a lot to hold me back. It took plenty of cops, and everybody was like going crazy.
They're yelling. They're saying things like, she did this. She hit him. We can't believe she killed him. And police realize that the woman that they're speaking of is Tyrone's wife, Keisha Jones.
The officers, fearing for her safety, also realize that Keisha's hurt.
Keisha is rushed to the hospital because there's blood on her hands and her knees, and they're not sure if she was injured in the accident.
Detectives arrive.
The initial officers that went to the scene try to sort things out. They try to get things under control. So we go and handle the scene.
Luckily, the vehicle's still on the scene. So reason would tell you that probably the driver's still on the scene. And the most alarming thing is the possibility that somebody could walk away. If you do have a crime, that driver could have fled or could walk away while you're standing there talking to other people. So you know at this point, you need officers on the scene to contain everybody that's there.
Before they start talking to witnesses, detectives take a look at the vehicle and surrounding debris.
This was a very contained crime scene. There was apparently a mirror or some glass that was in that side lot. And when the car hit it, it broke the glass. There's damage, heavy damage to the front of the vehicle. There's damage to the wall of the row house. There's a big cement piece that was out.
This man that clearly was crushed by this vehicle. The vehicle struck him, pushed him into the wall of this building. But now they have to determine what exactly happened here.
Detectives work their way through the crowd.
They try to find out who the witnesses are.
But despite throngs of onlookers, detectives learn that no one actually saw what happened.
Because this accident happened so late at night, in the neighborhood, people were asleep. There's no one outside. There were no witnesses.
Then they spot a young woman sitting alone on the curb.
She kind of separated herself. She went around the corner and put her head down. She was sobbing.
She is distraught. She is upset. She's crying. So did she see what exactly happened? They go up and talk to her, and what she says is that she's Keisha's cousin, Tamara Stanford. She was actually in the back seat of the car, so she saw what happened. And when police interview Tamara, she gives a statement that's very clear.
The cousin says that Keisha was driving the car.
They pulling me away and telling me, calm down. You know, I just sat there for a minute. Then I went home. Then I said I have to tell his mother, and I called her. And when I told her, our son is gone. Just like that, our son. And she just cried over the phone, and I just couldn't believe it. I felt this emptiness inside of me, but I couldn't cry. No tears would come out, nothing. You start seeing your son riding on the back of the bike and your son messing around with Pop. You start getting flashbacks of your child and the good times that you had with him.
Tyrone Taylor dead.
When police got to the scene, it was too late. Tyrone was already gone. Police know they have to start asking questions to see why this man is dead on the ground this particular night.
Witness Tamara Stanford identifies the driver of the vehicle that hit Tyrone as his wife, Keisha Jones.
She was in the car with the driver when this was going on. So she saw it.
At that point, she's taken down to the homicide unit, where detectives will talk to her.
Back at the hospital, the cuts to Keisha's knees and hands are deemed superficial.
It's the side of the house. And when the vehicle went up into the yard, it hit the glass, shattered the glass, and so there was glass all over the ground. That's the glass that Keisha was kneeling in.
It turns out it's from kneeling down next to Tyrone's lifeless body that her hands and her knees have lacerations in them.
After Keisha is taken to the hospital and treated for her injuries, they immediately take her to the police station. Police need to know what exactly happened.
The detectives deliver the awful news that Tyrone is indeed dead. She heard this at the scene, but she really didn't believe it. She's just shocked that Tyrone is truly gone.
Keisha confirms she was driving the vehicle when it hit Tyrone.
This was the father of her children. This was the man that she loved. And Keisha professed to tell police just that this wasn't intentional. This was an accident.
There was an argument in the car. Tyrone got out and she jumped into the driver's seat and started to go after him.
Keisha explains that she tried to take her foot off the gas pedal, but her shoe got caught.
Her heel got stuck in the vehicle's gas pedal, and this was an accident.
But when police ask a follow-up question, Keisha's answer takes them by surprise.
Police ask Keisha, have you ever chased Tyrone with a car before? And they're shocked when she says yes.
Keisha Jones admitted to chasing Tyrone down before. They would argue, it would get undoubtedly heated. Tyrone would remove himself from the situation and leave. And Keisha, being the one not wanting that argument to end, would jump in her car and go chase Tyrone. She goes on to admit that, well, I mean, I've chased him 2 or 3 times before in the car and nothing bad ever happened.
That makes it suspicious, so we have to go out there and see if she didn't intentionally mean to kill him.
Detectives turn to the only other witness, Keisha's cousin, Tamara.
When the vehicle hit Tyrone, Tamara was in the back seat.
She tells detectives that she had been out at a bar that evening with Keisha and Tyrone.
The argument was actually over infidelity. Tyrone saw Keisha getting a phone number of another guy while they were in the bar, and this upset Tyrone.
She says that they were still arguing in the car on the way home.
Tyrone was the one driving. She wasn't paying attention to Keisha and Tyrone because this was an argument. This was the norm for Keisha and Tyrone. And Tamara just sat back like, here we go again, and paid them no attention.
The argument got heated, and Keisha kicked Tyrone out of the car.
Tyrone was in his neighborhood. He figured everything blew up. It was out of control. He was going to remove himself from the situation. He left Keisha the vehicle so she could then go to her house with their children, and he would catch up with her after the situation de-escalated and everybody calmed down and had a chance to think. Tamara said she looked up from the phone because suddenly the vehicle started going really fast.
She realized that Keisha is driving forward at a high rate of speed and coming right at Tyrone.
Keisha proceeded to hit Tyrone. When she hit Tyrone, Tyrone rolled on top of the vehicle. Keisha proceeded to then accelerate and ran Tyrone into a wall, thereby crushing him.
She backs away from the building, and a witness sees the victim at that point on the ground after he's been hit. She sees Keisha get out of the car and approach Tyrone.
She said she got out of the car and was saying, Keisha, why did you do that? Why did you do that? She was very adamant. She just felt it was wrong as to what Keisha did.
Police now have two conflicting statements.
That still doesn't mean that Keisha did it on purpose. I mean, she might have just got out of the car and that things just went a little too far as her driving. In this case, it wasn't a whodunit because she admitted that she was driving the vehicle and it never disputed that. It was a matter of the intent.
Philadelphia detectives are investigating the suspicious death of Tyrone Taylor after his wife hit him with her car in November of 2011.
Police are at a standstill. They have Keisha saying it was an accident. They have Keisha's cousin, Tamara, saying it wasn't an accident. There's no evidentiary support.
With no proof either way, detectives take a closer look at the facts they do have.
Tamara is telling police Keisha came to pick her up. They came to meet Tyrone. It was a regular fun night. They had dinner, they went out. Keisha had 2 drinks for the night.
Keisha's blood alcohol is tested, and she ends up being just over 0.1, which is just over the legal limit in Pennsylvania. The problem that you have as an investigator and as a prosecutor is that there is some level of intoxication. 2 drinks may have brought you over that legal limit depending on the size of that person or the weight of that person. So she could have been significantly intoxicated or just a little bit intoxicated. Did this come into play, that attacks that she intentionally rammed him into a wall and killed him?
Investigators question the families to learn more about Tyrone and Keisha's relationship.
From the outside looking in, it looked like they were one big happy family, and Tyrone and Keisha got along so well.
But they all agree that the death of one of their twins while Tyrone was in jail was a curveball.
These were 2 people suffering from grief. Keisha especially because she was a mother that lost a child, and Tyrone, feeling guilty for not having been there, just tried to be there for Keisha as much as possible.
This trauma never really left Keisha, and she was always wondering what would have happened if the situation was different.
Is this crash payback? Is she getting revenge on the loss that Tyrone caused her to suffer?
The family says that in the past, Keisha often took her grief and her anger out on Tyrone.
He felt himself responsible for making that mistake. And it was because of that, Keisha's anger bubbled over repeatedly, and Tyrone took the abuse. Keisha was prone to lash out verbally, physically, and Tyrone never retaliated. He never lifted a hand to her. He just kind of dealt with it.
They're always fighting. He would have marks on him from prior fights. They were in a tumultuous relationship.
I start noticing scratches and different things, which he'd never been into an abusive relationship with anyone. And for me starting to see him like this, is, you know, it just bothered me when I say something, but he's like, oh, Dad, it's not like that. I got this, don't worry about it.
Men that are in domestic violence situations tend to stay silent. They don't tell anyone about it.
Men will not go down and get a protection from abuse order, better known as a PFA, against their wife or girlfriend. It's a man thing.
But even if Keisha had been violent to Tyrone in the past, it doesn't prove her intent on the night he was killed. The day after the crash, Tyrone's father calls the station.
I wound up getting in touch with a homicide and told them that I had footage of the incident that happened. My son was killed last night and he was hit by the car, and I have everything on film.
A lot of the corner stores, or as they call them in Philadelphia, bodegas, were very camered up. They would have cameras front, side, back, the whole thing. So they were very camered up. They would have cameras front, side, back, the whole thing. So there was a corner store about a half a block away, that had cameras that pointed directly at the scene.
Tyrone's father tells them he went to the store that morning.
When he seen me come in there, he's like, I know what you're here for. And he like turned the camera around and showed it to me. I asked him, is it possible I can get a copy of it? He gave me a copy of it.
Detectives realize that they have the video that involves the whole crash. Eyewitnesses, video, audio, anything that you can get that was recorded is going to be ideal, because that is the most subjective item that you can have in your investigation.
When we got that video and saw that video, it pretty much told the entire story.
What you see on the surveillance video doesn't exactly match Keisha's story.
Abuse typically starts with little things. It's a slow burn when someone doesn't do something right and you become angry, but that anger is stored up and you roll over and spill into a relationship. That's what happened to Keisha. She never dealt with the trauma of losing a child, of feeling like she was left alone and deserted by Tyrone, a man that said he would never leave her. When Tyrone finally did get out of jail and he's back in Keisha's life, she finally had a punching bag. This was the man that left her. She could hit him physically, she could hit him verbally, and she could make him feel the pain that she in turn was feeling. Tyrone essentially felt like it was his duty to take it.
Philadelphia detectives are looking into the fatal crash that killed 28-year-old Tyrone Taylor on Thanksgiving weekend 2011. Tyrone's wife, Keisha, hit him with the vehicle she was driving, pinning him against a brick wall.
Keisha told police that this was an accident. There's no way she would ever dream of killing her husband.
After being tipped off by Tyrone's father, detectives obtained camera footage from a bodega near the crash site. Detectives review the footage, zeroing in on the moment the vehicle comes into frame.
It pretty much told the entire story. You see the car come up, you see the headlights of the car come to the side, you see Tyrone get out, he's walking across the front of the car.
He doesn't slam the door. He doesn't give her the finger. He doesn't bang on the glass. He doesn't exhibit any signs that he's hopped up or he's violent or bang on the glass. He doesn't exhibit any signs that he's hopped up or he's violent or he's angry.
Tyrone attempts to walk away, but Keisha gets behind the wheel.
Suddenly, the car lurches forward and turns, makes a 90-degree turn directly aimed at Tyrone.
It's a sharp 90-degree turn at a high rate of speed. And from another camera, you see Tyrone is now, he flips up on the hood of the car as the car continues into the wall. Camera doesn't show where the wall hits, but you see the car hit into the wall, kind of bangs, comes back, and then you see reverse. So once you see that, it's hard to say that you didn't see him or you didn't go after him.
What detectives see contradicts Keisha's explanation.
She said her heel got caught under the gas pedal, and that is not the case. She accelerated. If your heel really did get caught, there's no way for you to depress that gas pedal even more. It was at that moment police were sure that Keisha Jones killed her husband. This was a woman that killed her husband in rage.
For investigators, the video makes it clear how to charge Keisha.
Detectives charged Keisha with first-degree murder, which in Pennsylvania, you have to prove that I understood what I did was going to kill you, and I intended to do this to kill you. Going forward and accelerating, it looks like from the video that your motive is to hurt him, is to kill him at that point.
On November 27th, she was sent straight to prison without bail.
Keisha's attorney tries to get the first-degree murder charge downgraded.
At the end of that preliminary hearing, I said, I want to get you a deal for either manslaughter or third degree. Manslaughter is the best I can do. Third degree is the most likely, because third degree murder in Pennsylvania is that you were trying to inflict serious bodily injury, but not kill the person. And I believe that's what happened here.
Prosecutors consider the challenges of proving Keisha's intent beyond a reasonable doubt.
She stayed there, she didn't flee, and she was crying, holding him as he died in her arms. This is a huge hurdle as a prosecutor that you have to overcome. So you have a lot of issues going on here. Keisha was intoxicated, she was over the legal limit. Another thing that you look at is, was this in the heat of passion? So did she intentionally want to chase him, but she didn't intentionally want to kill him? Heat of passion takes away the intent of first-degree murder. So as a plea deal, they offered her to plead guilty to third-degree murder.
So we got that deal. It was for a lot of jail time. I believe it was for like 15 to 30 years, which is a tough pill to swallow, but it's better than life without parole. And I told her, if you get first degree, the most likely verdict here, none of it's going to matter because it's mandatory life. In Pennsylvania, there's no possibility of parole. And that's got to be a factor in deciding whether or not to take a deal. And I really tried to drive that home. I told her to take it, and she just didn't want to listen. She rejected it, and I just left the case.
Keisha felt confident that she would be successful in front of a jury.
On October 23rd, 2012, less than 1 year after the tragic death of Tyrone Taylor, his wife Keisha Jones goes on trial for first-degree murder.
There's 4 pieces of evidence in this case that were overwhelming. The video, the cousin, the video, and the cousin.
The prosecution puts Tamara on the stand.
That night when Keisha and her cousin and Tyrone went out, Tyrone became angry because he saw Keisha giving her phone number to another man at the bar.
According to Tamara, they were fighting in the car. The argument got heated, and Keisha kicked Tyrone out of the car.
What Tamara sees next is that Keisha gets into the driver's seat and floors it. She hits the gas, coming right towards Tyrone, eventually crashing into the side of the building, killing Tyrone. Her information is what also gave a clear intent, what took away the possibility that this was some kind of freak accident, that Keisha didn't intend to do this.
The video backs up Tamara's testimony.
They played it, and you seen the jurors in there looking and crying, and you know, when they see the impact, you see them like all that, and the whole motion of the jury. You know, it was like horrible.
Keisha had the opportunity to stop the car, to step on the brake. If indeed her heel was stuck the way Keisha claimed to police, she could have popped the emergency brake. She could have thrown the gear shift in park. She could have turned left. She could have turned the wheel. She could have gotten away from her husband. Instead, what this woman did was watch her husband roll on top of this vehicle, and then she accelerated into a wall, thereby crushing her husband to death.
The problem that you have in this case is you have this clear-cut video of this person driving 32 feet with her husband on the hood of the car through a fence into a brick wall. The only way you're going to overcome that is to have your client up there crying, appearing as to be the caring mother and the caring wife.
Which is exactly what the defense attempts to do.
The defendant could testify, and in this case, she did. You have Keisha saying one thing, that they have a beautiful relationship, no problem in the marriage. There's no reason in the world she would want to crush him.
She says she didn't do it intentionally, and she can prove that she didn't do it intentionally because she stayed there, she didn't flee, and she was crying, holding him as he died in her arms.
After a 3-day trial, the jury comes back with a verdict.
Despite the defense's claim that Keisha did not intend to kill her husband or even hurt him, Keisha was still found guilty and convicted of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison.
The prosecution had a video. This video was amazingly detailed. It showed the car basically revving and crushing him. And she has her own cousin in the back seat testifying against her.
The outcome I was happy with. The sentence I was very happy with. He got justice. It wasn't so much I got justice, my son got justice. Tyrone Taylor.
She took his life viciously, maliciously. Not only did she ruin her life in the process, but what about those children? Now, they have no parents because of one moment in Keisha's mind.
Had they gotten help, had they sought therapy, had they talked it out with family even, just someone that meant something to them that could help them work through the issues, because it's never okay to hit anyone, male or female. If you are in an abusive relationship, it is not healthy. That is a toxic situation. That is a situation you need to remove yourself from, no matter how difficult you think it may be.
Tyrone's memory will live on through those who still suffer from his loss.
His birthday was June the 29th. And always they would have something, you know, big cookout, and everyone gather together, and, you know, and, oh man, they always remember my son. Tyrone won't be forgotten. Like I tell people, you know, God has his reasons for everything that goes on in our life. Even though we don't accept it or don't want the reasons he have, we have to deal with it. We are here on borrowed time. We all have a journey. And when he calls us, we have to go home. We just have to go. Even though we don't agree with it, life still goes on. And Tyrone, his life's still going on. Even though he's not here, he's still going on.
One that she could help because she was addicted to helping people.
He was a handsome loner trying to rebuild his life and capture her heart.
She told us, Mom, I met somebody that really don't treat me right.
Until a shocking betrayal and an act of violence put their love to the ultimate test.
The saying, we all want to have our cake and eat it too, was just taken to a whole nother level.
Just shoot me like 9 shots. Instead of screaming at people like, call the police, call the police.
Before justice is served, a notorious law will be invoked.
What you have here is the exact same Stand Your Ground law that was used long before anyone ever heard of Trayvon Martin.
And 2 different juries will have to decide who's the victim and who's the criminal.
He's a stalker. He is lurking in the dark and in the corner. I'm like, if I got it, I got too much.
I'm reading the police reports, and of course I know it's real, but for that split second, you're thinking, is this made up?
August 2nd, 2008. It's a sultry summer day in the quiet West Palm Beach, Florida neighborhood of South Bay. But that calm explodes when police receive a frantic 911 call. The caller is a woman who claims a man has been shot in front of her home. Deputies race to the scene and find a crowd gathered outside a modest middle-class residence. Leaping a chain-link fence, they follow a trail of blood around the side of the house.
She got a pulse. 61 Alpha. Go ahead and start me a supervisor. Got a 1081.
The responding deputies encountered a black male who had been shot multiple times, laying in the driveway of the residence.
As paramedics arrive, no one knows if he will live or die.
I wasn't aware if he had expired due to the gunshot wounds or whether he was going to survive this.
What sparked this brutal shooting? And who was the man in the yard? Searching for answers, police turn to the woman who called 911, a woman named Cynthia Green Anderson. Born and raised in South Florida, Cynthia Green was the 4th of 13 children.
We all kept together as a family, seeing movies and stuff together. It was a close-knit family.
As one of the older siblings, Cynthia not only cared for her brothers and sisters, but strove to bring a smile to their face at every turn.
Cynthia was the life of the party. She always kept everybody laughing, entertained, and just like to have fun.
But Cynthia was more than just a bubbly personality. A natural caregiver, Cynthia studied hard to become a nurse, a job she relished from day one.
She said, whenever you grow up, whatever you decide to be, make sure it's something that you love doing.
Unfortunately, 20 years into her career, Cynthia suffered a serious back injury while moving an elderly patient. She was also diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which forced her to hang up her nursing scrubs for good.
If she had never hurt her back, I'm sure she'd probably still been nursing because it was something she loved to do.
But through the pain, Cynthia never lost her positive outlook, nor did she lose sight of her biggest dream, finding true love.
She's very romantic, and she gives 110% of her love to whomever she's with.
Unfortunately, Cynthia's romantic compass didn't always lead her to Mr. Right.
She would still find someone that was in need because she was addicted to giving. She was addicted to loving.
By the time Cynthia was 43, she had weathered 2 failed marriages. But she never gave up hope of finding the man of her dreams. And one day in 2007, that dream finally came true.
She told me, Mama, I met somebody that don't treat me right. They was very compatible. They were together all the time. They was hanging out together. They would party together. They would shop together.
Mr. Right was 37-year-old Craig Anderson. Charming and hardworking, Craig was a floor installer by trade. Like Cynthia, he was raised in South Bay, hailed from a big family, and often acted as a surrogate parent growing up.
He was a cook. We expect him to have a meal when we come from work. We know he would do that.
With so much in common, it didn't take long for Craig and Cynthia to hit it off.
They went fishing. They went to movies. They went out to dinner. They went out to dance.
At first, Cynthia tried to take things slow, but there was no denying the passion she and Craig felt for one another.
When they first came in, he introduced me to her. They sat down, they talked, hold hands, they kissed, just like I wasn't even there, so it was nice. It was good.
The whirlwind romance quickly led to an engagement, and on Valentine's Day 2008, Cynthia and Craig were married.
I read scripture out of the Bible, Ecclesiastes, 3rd chapter, a time and a season for everything.
But no sooner had Craig and Cynthia tied the knot than some dark secrets from Craig's past began to surface. He had struggled for years with drug abuse, which made Cynthia's family wonder if she was making the same relationship mistakes all over again.
She always seemed to find men that were down and in need so that she can help bring them up. And a lot of times, I believe that caused her some pain, agony in the end. It seemed like another charity case that she's another little product that she likes.
Things only got worse when Craig backslid and was arrested for simple possession of cocaine, which earned Craig a month in the Palm Beach County Jail. Even with Craig behind bars, Cynthia refused to give up on the man she loved.
She wanted to help everybody, so she might have felt like, well, maybe she could help him as well.
When Craig emerged from jail 4 weeks later, he seemed like a changed man. He swore off drugs and showered Cynthia with the love and affection he felt she deserved.
Thank you so much.
And with Cynthia's arthritis often making simple household chores torture, Craig also took care of the cooking and cleaning while holding down a full-time job.
So you feeling better?
Getting better. She kind of felt like he was the man who would take care of her, and he loved her and do right by her and be a protector.
But as the bloody scene in South Bay will attest, Craig Anderson wasn't the only one with some skeletons in his closet. And what seemed like a storybook romance is in fact a tangled web of sex, lies, and deception. Newlyweds Cynthia and Craig Anderson believed destiny brought them together, and nothing could tear them apart. Together they weathered Cynthia's debilitating back injury and Craig's reoccurring battle with drug abuse.
Everything seemed to be very blessed, and they were very happy together.
which makes the bloody scene of August 2nd, 2008 all the more horrific. Responding to a 911 call from Cynthia, police find a man drenched in blood in the yard of the Andersons' home.
He had been shot multiple times to include his chest, torso, and legs.
Officers wonder if the man is Cynthia's husband, Craig. But as paramedics rush him to a nearby trauma center, he comes to long enough to identify himself as one Jerry Logan. Running the name through their system, responding officers discover that their shooting victim has a lengthy rap sheet and had recently been paroled after serving time for an armed robbery. This information prompts detectives to wonder if Jerry Logan might have been a burglar, trying to commit some sort of home invasion. In order to confirm that hunch, detectives will need to speak to Cynthia, who witnesses say has been holed up inside her home since calling 911 earlier. Then Cynthia emerges, alone, unarmed, but clearly dazed.
Are you Miss Anderson? May I have a word with you, please? Have you a seat here?
She was teetering back and forth. She didn't direct her conversation at me, more of a nervous type of chatter.
I saw this guy, he was in a fist.
Obviously rattled by what's transpired, Cynthia does her best to explain the events that led to the shooting.
I don't know why. He just came out of nowhere. I saw him through the window.
She was willing to provide a little bit of information, but she didn't provide much information as to actually the circumstances surrounding the shooting.
Though Cynthia's statement offers little in the way of specifics, it allows detectives to piece together their own theory about how the shooting went down. Sitting in her living room, Cynthia noticed an intruder jump the fence surrounding her property. When the man tried to break in, Cynthia grabbed a gun she and her husband Craig kept in a nearby drawer. The intruder lunged for the gun, and a struggle ensued, and Cynthia shot him. Cynthia seems to be telling the truth, and given Jerry Logan's rap sheet, investigators are inclined to believe her. There's just one problem.
How many times did you shoot?
I don't remember. I just pulled the trigger. I don't know. He was shot at least 6 times.
To investigators, the 6 gunshots seem excessive.
You would think that if someone just got shot multiple times, it's usually vengeance, that wanting to get justice served.
Is it possible there's more to this case than Cynthia's self-defense?
It's absolutely possible that Cynthia could have lied.
In order to answer that question, investigators need to speak to Jerry Logan. But at this point, ER doctors aren't sure Jerry will survive, much less be able to give a formal statement.
Jerry was in surgery and wasn't aware of his condition at that time.
Unable to speak with Jerry Logan, police fan out to question if any of Cynthia and Craig's neighbors had seen anything suspicious earlier that day. Turns out, a couple of people did have information about the case. Police asked them to come down to the station for an interview. One eyewitness, LaTangela Brown, claimed that around 11 a.m., Jerry Logan asked her and a friend for a ride so he could do a favor for someone. They obliged, but no sooner had they dropped Jerry off than a man burst out of the house and brandished a weapon.
When he burst out the door, he had the gun. He pointed over to the truck with us first. Then he turned around and pointed at Jerry.
According to LaTangela, Jerry allegedly tried to defuse the situation, at which point the man gunned him down in cold blood.
Just shooting him like 9 shots, but at this time, we don't reverse down the road. We still screaming at people like, call the police, call the police.
It's a shocking eyewitness account, one that's at odds with Cynthia Anderson's version of events. So who was this unidentified man eyewitnesses say pulled the trigger? And where was he now? Is it possible Cynthia's husband Craig is the mystery man? And that Cynthia, ever the caregiver, was lying to police to protect them?
Cynthia could have lied to cover up the fact that this murder was at the hands of Craig. She couldn't risk him going back to jail.
Patrol officers hastily organize a search party for the case's new prime suspect, Craig Anderson.
It was absolutely important to find Craig. Investigators had to find him, and they had to find him quickly.
But before police can track down Craig Anderson, two of the story's main players will come forward with shocking information that sends the investigation careening in a scandalous new direction and reveals there's far more to Cynthia and Craig's fairy tale romance and to their relationship with Jerry Logan than meets the eye.
It appeared that this was just a love triangle, and this kind of set the ball in motion.
This saying, we all want to have our cake and eat it too, was just taken to a whole nother level.
A terrifying shooting at a West Palm Beach house has police scrambling for answers. At first, investigators suspect Cynthia Anderson shot intruder Jerry Logan in self-defense. But eyewitnesses claim an unidentified male ambushed Jerry in an unprovoked attack.
The investigation went in many different directions initially.
With the search for Craig Anderson coming up empty-handed and Jerry Logan fighting for his life in the ER, investigators focus their attention on Craig's wife, Cynthia.
She appeared to be nervous. She seemed to be talking almost to herself, trying to convince herself. She teetered back and forth, not really wanting to commit to anything.
That's when Cynthia reveals a connection to Jerry Logan that investigators hadn't seen coming.
Why do you think that Mr. Logan was coming to your house in the first place?
I know Mr. Logan.
How do you know Mr. Logan?
We were lovers. We used to be lovers.
Cynthia informs investigators that she and Jerry briefly dated shortly before she met her husband, Craig.
Thank you for coming by. Thank you for inviting me over.
At first, the relationship was fun and breezy.
She would take him to church. You know, you would see Jerry wrap his arms around her. They were very affectionate.
But according to Cynthia, once sex entered the equation, she saw a different side of Jerry.
Cynthia told me that even at home that he would make her do things, sexual activity that she did not want to do.
He got too weird. He got too possessive.
Cynthia claims that when she tried to break things off, he threatened her.
Jerry had said he would get Cynthia back if it'd be the last thing he'd do. I see him everywhere. He was at my house. He was at my job. He was at the store. Wherever I was, he wouldn't leave me alone.
Cynthia tells detectives Jerry continued to stalk her, even after she and Craig started dating. In fact, things got so bad that she had to file a restraining order against him.
Jerry is a stalker. He is lurking in the dark and in the corner, and every chance he got, he tried to talk to Cynthia.
According to Cynthia, the situation finally came to a head the day of the shooting, around 12 p.m., when Jerry hopped the fence and tried to enter her house. Cynthia's statement is further bolstered when another key witness they've been looking for walks into police headquarters.
Craig Anderson, he voluntarily came into the sheriff's office. His stance was that Jerry shouldn't have been in the yard, that this was self-defense.
I came up to the house trying to break in, so I don't know if he's gonna kill my wife, kill me. I don't have time to wait for the police to get there, so I shot him.
You shot him 6 times?
Yeah.
But investigators are still curious why Craig fled the scene if he was trying to protect his wife.
Why would he leave the house and leave his wife there with this bad person? You stay there, you protect your wife. That's not what Craig did.
You're claiming self-defense. Why did you leave after you shot him?
Why did you run? Because I had run in with the law before.
Craig explains that given his recent troubles with the law, he panicked after shooting Jerry and headed to the only other place he felt safe.
I ran.
Ran to where?
To my mom's house.
He came in. He said, we had a shooting down there. I said, well, come on. Let me take you to the police station. Because I don't want them police coming around my house acting crazy.
In Craig's version of events, he pulled the trigger, not Cynthia. Is Craig really the shooter? Or is he lying to try and protect Cynthia? No sooner have investigators posed that question, there's news from the hospital. Not only has Jerry Logan survived the lengthy operations required to save his life, he's slowly regaining consciousness.
I couldn't talk. I can hear, but I can't respond. I can barely see.
I'm on all this medication.
But when the medication wears off, Jerry Logan can speak for himself. What he has to say will make investigators wonder. What was the true nature of his relationship with Cynthia? And just how far was one person willing to go to prove their love? It's now been nearly a week since Jerry Logan was shot outside newlywed Cynthia and Craig Anderson's West Palm Beach house. The Andersons claim that Jerry had been stalking Cynthia in open defiance of a restraining order, and that Craig ultimately shot him to protect Cynthia from this love-crazed ex-con.
He's protecting his household, himself, and his wife. And there's an intruder on his property. He has a right to protect that out of fear of his own safety.
I don't have time to wait for the police to get there, so I shot him.
But just as detectives are about to call the case closed, Jerry Logan emerges from life-saving surgery just days after being shot. At first, he's too groggy to speak. But once the medication wears off, he tells police that contrary to what Cynthia said, he wasn't her stalker.
She's alleged you've been stalking her.
That's my point. Why don't you say that? In Jerry's statement, he indicated that they had been having a sexual relationship with one another. I cared about her. I loved it. It was just good.
From his hospital bed, Jerry explains that it all started shortly after Craig was locked up on the misdemeanor drug charges. When Cynthia called him out of the blue and asked if he could apply arthritis cream on her back while she took a shower. Sensing an opportunity to reignite an old flame, Jerry took Cynthia up on her offer.
She naked, and she go, alright, rub me down. So I'm like, so I get some latex gloves. I go to rub it down, but I'm shaking like a tree in a hurricane.
According to Jerry, for the next 4 weeks while her husband was in jail, he and Cynthia engaged in a tawdry affair, during which time Cynthia indulged all of his sexual fantasies, including the ones that she once considered to be taboo.
I was like, wow, you just turned me on ever since I met you. I wanted you.
He claims the hush-hush nature of the affair only made it more intense.
It was almost like Cynthia and Jerry were addicted to each other. As long as Craig is in jail, she can be with Jerry.
As for Jerry, the more time he spent with Cynthia, the deeper he fell in love, and the more he dreaded the day Craig Anderson got out of county lockup. Then one night, as Jerry and Cynthia lay in each other's arms, the phone rang.
Why you haven't come to see me?
It was Craig, calling collect from the county pen.
I'm laying in the bed with her, we naked, you know what I'm saying? Called, she talking to me.
You know what, listen, Craig, I think about you all the time.
I'm like, man, I'm tired. You telling me you saying you gonna tell this dude, and you ain't told me yet. So I snatched the phone.
Yo, what's up, Craig? She ain't coming down to see you because she's with me. Me, Playboy. Alright, don't call him no more.
Craig calls back to the house, and he is not a happy man.
Who was that on the phone? We just need to talk, okay?
Her story really wasn't adding up.
Who was that on the phone?
Tensions grew. He became furious.
I was just a friend.
Cynthia asked me why did I do that right there. Tell him that I was there. And I told him. I gave you enough time and you said you was gonna tell him.
Jerry Logan's statement is detailed. But given what detectives know about his checkered past, and about the restraining order Cynthia has against him, they're justifiably skeptical that he might be a stalker.
We're looking at a guy who's always been in trouble.
But Jerry insists that he's not a stalker, and the police have it backwards. He claims Cynthia filed the restraining order a few days after Craig learned about her and Jerry's affair.
He stated that the only reason Cynthia filed any charges is because Craig became aware that their sexual relationship was on again.
Turns out Jerry was telling the truth.
This restraining order was filed right after Craig found out that Cynthia and Jerry were sleeping together, not before, as they previously thought.
The restraining order was granted to Cynthia as she claimed that she had been raped by Jerry Logan.
If Cynthia filed the rape allegations in an effort to mask the true nature of her and Jerry's affair, it opens a whole Pandora's box of possible motives for both Cynthia and Craig to want Jerry dead.
So, that was a potential motive in the shooting. It may have been the unfaithfulness of Cynthia with Jerry Logan while he was in custody.
But it doesn't explain what he was doing at Cynthia Craig's home the day of the shooting. Jerry Logan has a simple enough answer to that question.
She lured me in and they got me down.
Investigators asked Jerry to walk them through his theory that Cynthia lured him to her house in order to ambush him.
Why were you there? Why were you Cynthia there?
Broke into our house, remember?
I didn't break into her house.
According to Jerry, the night before the shooting, Cynthia called him and asked him to come over, not for a sexual rendezvous, but to feed her dogs the next morning while she helped an elderly relative run some errands.
She was supposed to let me too, but she didn't, so I had to go in through the window.
Jerry Logan was saying that Cynthia Green had told him that she was going to Miami that day and that she asked him to come in and feed her dogs.
Jerry said he hitched a ride with friends to Cynthia's house, but when he arrived, he realized the gate was locked. Assuming Cynthia simply forgot to unlock it, he jumped the fence and attempted to enter the house on the side porch. With his friends watching from the car, when Jerry reached the porch, he was ambushed.
Craig Anderson jumpsuit with some latex gloves on. Same types of gloves, you know, I used to rub it down with. He jumps up, what you doing? I throw my hands up. I can see the fire, see the bullet shell jumping from the gun.
The first shot shattered Jerry's spirit. He fell in a heap, defenseless and shell-shocked.
I'm laying down like, I'm moving my hand, I'm like, I'm alive. I really can't do that. I'm defenseless. I'm helpless.
Craig hit him 2 more times. Jerry claims that as the blood pooled around him, Cynthia emerged from the house, wild-eyed with rage.
I'm defenseless. I'm helpless. And she was like, kill that mother.
Cynthia grabbed the gun from her husband.
He told Cynthia to finish killing me. He got a gun to her to finish killing me.
Jerry alleges at that point, Cynthia fired 3 more shots into him, then cocked the trigger and aimed it squarely at his face.
The gun jammed. And I'm looking at her, and she's trying to work. She's trying to unjam me.
According to Jerry, Cynthia was unable to unjam the gun and eventually ran into the house to call 911 and create the illusion of a botched burglary. Armed with this new information, detectives obtain a search warrant for the Anderson home. During the search, they uncover several key pieces of evidence.
In plain view, it was a .32 caliber gun. There were latex gloves that were consistent in both Jerry's statement as well as the witness statements.
Ballistic analysis determines the bullets removed from Jerry Logan's body were fired from the same .32 pistol found inside the Anderson home. In piecing all this evidence together, investigators now have a concrete theory of how and why the shooting took place.
This was just a love triangle that Craig Anderson became aware of and decided that they were going to try and set Jerry Logan up in order to get rid of him once and for all.
On August 10th, 2008, police arrest Cynthia and Craig Anderson and charge them with attempted murder and conspiracy.
My sister is just a giving, loving person that does not deserve to even be there.
Not so, according to prosecutors.
Cynthia was basically leading 2 lives. She was telling Craig one thing and she was telling Jerry something different. But at the end of the day, the reality is Cynthia was all about self-preservation.
Once in custody, prosecutors expect Cynthia and Craig to turn on each other in order to save their own skin. But the newlyweds stick to their story and each other.
Their love was steadfast, it was true, and even after such a brutal attack, here they are together, still very much in love and even stronger than before.
But could that seemingly unbreakable bond withstand the white-hot heat of an attempted murder trial?
During my career as a police officer, I don't think I'll ever witness that kind of emotion in a courtroom.
August 2008, Jerry Logan was shot 6 times just outside the home of newlyweds Cynthia and Craig Anderson. The subsequent investigation uncovered multiple eyewitness accounts of the attack, and at first, investigators believed the Andersons acted in self-defense.
What you have here is the exact same stand your ground law that was used long before anyone ever heard of Trayvon Martin.
But Jerry's account of the shooting, coupled with eyewitness accounts and forensic evidence collected at the scene, reveals a far more sordid motive behind the crime.
Jerry Logan was set up by his lover, Cynthia Green Anderson, and her husband, Craig Anderson. The only problem was Jerry didn't die. Had Jerry died, they would have committed the perfect crime.
Prosecutors decide to try Craig and Cynthia in one combined case, although separate juries will decide their fate. A tactic which prosecutors believe might compel Cynthia and Craig to testify against each other. But during pre-trial hearings, the two lovers make it crystal clear they have no plans of turning on one another.
I talked to him about possibly looking at her as an adverse party, and he just wouldn't hear that. He truly loves her.
In their opening statement, prosecutors argue that when Craig found out about Cynthia and Jerry's affair, he became so enraged that Cynthia made up the story about the rape to make things right. She then filed a restraining order against Jerry to make her claims seem more legit.
She was essentially trying to keep both of her men happy. It got to the point where she had to choose.
As for Craig, prosecutors claim he was the one who instigated the talk of murdering Jerry, although Cynthia seemed more than happy to go along.
The situation that was in front of her at the time was Craig Anderson, and they devised a plan to get rid of the other man.
To support their theory, prosecutors introduced the pistol and the latex gloves as evidence, which they claim corroborates Jerry Logan's claim that Cynthia and Craig knowingly conspired to murder him.
There were latex gloves that were consistent in both Jerry's statement as well as the witness statements, which were pretty significant in substantiating Jerry's account of what had actually taken place.
After ruling out the physical evidence, which also included the shell casings found on the property, prosecutors introduced the eyewitness account claiming to see Craig and Cynthia ambush Jerry Logan in broad daylight.
And as soon as he stepped on the porch, a man came out with a gun. They drove him to the home, and when shots were fired, they took off. And they said that, they had seen Mr. Anderson shoot Mr. Logan.
The eyewitness account seems to tip the case in the prosecution's favor.
Your Honor, the people called Jerry Logan to the stand.
Emboldened, they decide to let Jerry Logan tell the jury his story, a risky proposition given his lengthy rap sheet.
We said to the jury, you're going to get to meet Jerry. You may not like him. He's a convicted felon, but here's his story.
I was going up to the door, and next thing you know, her husband busts out the door with a gun in my face.
He was angry, and we wanted the jury to understand as well why he was angry.
I want to trace both of them. Why? What did I do to you? I'm gonna get justice one way or the other.
On the stand, Jerry Logan walks jurors straight through the scintillating details of his and Cynthia's affair, and how he was powerless to say no to Cynthia's advances.
I was in too deep. I cared about her. I loved her.
We were together. We were like, lovers. I guess what people call lovers.
Lovers.
Yeah.
Jerry tells the jurors that the only way Cynthia could end their affair without losing her husband in the process was to portray Jerry as a rapist, thus paving the way for the murder plot against him.
They portrayed me as this badass dude. No, I'm not that dude unless you make me that dude.
Jerry also recounts the events that led to the shooting itself. From Cynthia's cell phone call to the 6 bullets she and Craig allegedly fired into him at point-blank range. To the kill shot that thankfully never happened because the gun jammed.
And that opened floodgate for his emotions to just let loose.
Our love was gone. Bitter. Hatred. They done side me up.
tell us a little bit about your criminal history?
The defense strikes back, painting Jerry as a manipulative career criminal and stalker, whose story about the shooting is a fabrication from start to finish, especially the part about Cynthia pulling the trigger. To back up their assertion, they present phone records of the day before the shooting, a day in which Jerry Logan called Cynthia's cell phone nearly 200 times.
Someone calling you incessantly who's not your husband would seem more like a stalker, like he was harassing.
He called 170 times in a 9-hour period, which is a lot.
Why would you call 200 times in one day? That's stalking.
Nobody's
So on
stalking.
that day, you showed up at a house where the gate was locked and had to jump the fence. They have the right to stand their ground.
Taking their argument a step further, the defense invokes Florida's controversial stand your ground law, claiming that if Jerry trespassed on the Andersons' property, Craig and Cynthia had every right to shoot him.
It appeared as if he was coming in to attack them, and then they shot him because he was on their property. They absolutely used the defense of stand your ground.
By introducing the cell phone records and by invoking the stand your ground defense, the defense seems to have successfully sowed the seeds of reasonable doubt.
It's a clearer case. There's some guy on your property and you shot him.
But just before resting their case, prosecutors introduce shocking new evidence. Evidence that, on the surface, makes a guilty verdict seem like a done deal, at least for one of the defendants.
I'm really gonna feel the motherfucker.
After a month of testimony, the trial of Craig and Cynthia Anderson for the attempted murder of Cynthia's alleged lover, Jerry Logan, is coming to a close. Thanks to some incriminating cell phone records, along with the use of Florida's controversial stand your ground law, the scales of justice have seemingly tipped in favor of the defense. But before resting their case, prosecutors introduced some phone records of their own. Records of calls made to Cynthia on July 13th, 2008, from the Palm Beach County Jail. Calls made by her husband, Craig Anderson.
Mr. Anderson was very upset, and he said things like, I'm going to kill that so-and-so when I get out.
The recordings clearly indicate there was a plan in the works to kill Jerry Logan. They also point to Craig Anderson as the crime's mastermind.
I'm really gonna feel the motherfucker grip. I'm really going on big time when I get out. It's gonna just start happening the motherfucker, and then when it's gonna be, it's over. I'm playing games. Playing no motherfucker.
I don't want to get you out for this.
I'm gonna stop all this here.
The defense counters by reminding jurors that saying you're going to kill someone and actually doing it are two very different things, especially when it comes to matters of the heart.
People say things when they're hurt, when they know that someone is having sex with their wife in their home and then taunting them on the phone, saying, I'm going to kill you or somebody should shoot you. It doesn't necessarily mean that that was his intention.
Shortly thereafter, both sides rest their case, and the two juries break for deliberation.
You never really know what the jury is thinking.
Craig and Cynthia supporters might be on pins and needles, but not the alleged victim.
I wasn't nervous. I just sitting back just waiting there. God got his hand in this. So I ain't got no worries.
Craig's jury is the first to return with a verdict.
Mr. Anderson was found guilty of attempted first-degree murder and also found guilty of conspiracy to commit attempted first-degree murder.
The judge sentences Craig to life in prison.
Mr. Anderson now realizes that he's going to go to prison for, the rest of his life, and, of course, he's devastated.
But nobody in the courtroom seems more distraught over Craig's sentence than his wife, Cynthia.
Cynthia was devastated when the verdict was read. It was that moment when she realized that the man that she loved would spend the rest of his life behind bars.
A few hours later, Cynthia's jury returns with their verdict. On the charge of conspiracy, they find Cynthia guilty. On the attempted murder charge, they find her not guilty.
I was like, what the hell?
The jury believed that while Cynthia helped plan the shooting, there wasn't enough evidence to prove that she ever pulled the trigger.
Jerry was not pleased with that verdict. He felt that she had shot him multiple times.
I said, well, She got away with them, she won't get away with the next one then.
I think that the sentences were appropriate due to the nature and the planning that went into the shooting of Jerry. I was happy that justice was served.
Even though Cynthia is acquitted of the attempted murder charge, the judge sentences her to 20 years in prison. A hefty punishment for someone many see as a victim in her own right.
I was crushed. I mean, I was losing my sister, and it made me so sad to know that the law just didn't do her justice.
Cynthia had endured a series of very abusive relationships. She very easily could have allowed herself to be manipulated by Craig so that she can continue on living the life that she always wanted.
They could have handled this a better way than what they did. Call the police or whatever, you know what I'm saying? She done lost her part of her life. She can see the streets again if she lived through it.
Whether Cynthia Anderson is a victim of circumstance or a cold-blooded criminal, one thing is certain. She still has to live with the fact that the stormy love triangle that swirled around her ultimately destroyed any future she might have with Craig Anderson, the love of her life, who was willing to kill another man in order to have Cynthia all to himself.
This love triangle between the three of them is very interesting. What her situation was, what led her to this, only she knows.
I don't have no hard feelings towards them. I just hope that they can accept what they did to me and live with it. God sat high and looked low. He passed judgment.
They had always shared a special bond.
They had known each other for so long.
She told him everything.
So when tragedy strikes, could he hold the key to the mystery?
Oh, Lord. He was the last one to see her alive.
He said she got into a black car.
I couldn't even see who was driving.
Do their dear friend.
When you take a wrong turn in love, they say that no one falls in love by choice. It is by chance.
She felt really close and attached. She was envisioning their future together.
But sometimes chance encounters lead down dark paths.
I was trying to hook up with her. All I know is that we started to feel uncomfortable.
And the heat of passion can reach a boiling point.
Me and the soldiers got done fighting.
He told her that they would be coming back.
She said that she didn't think that it was going to come to that point.
911 emergency, you need police, fire, or an ambulance. 911 emergency, hello.
This was a person who had become unhinged.
It's like he started turning into the devil.
And when tempers flare, there's a thin line between destiny and blind rage.
Oh, I hate this man.
He's not a good person.
I hate this man.
September 23rd, 2020. The sun has yet to peek over the horizon on a quiet autumn morning in Cleveland, Ohio.
I think Cleveland is a great representation for the whole country. It's very diverse, very artsy. They call us the best location in the nation for a reason.
Cleveland is made of so many different parts and so many neighborhoods. It's kind of a dichotomy of stories. On one side of the city, there's opulence. On other sides of the city, it's gritty.
At 5:15 a.m., Cleveland police receive a chilling call from the city's east side.
911, Denise Police, Fire, EMS. Police.
In a whisper, the woman identifies herself as Portia Woods. She says a man and woman are just outside the door of her apartment.
The dispatcher can hear someone outside of her home. Obviously, there's something going on.
Portia explains that the man threatened her hours earlier.
Okay, and you didn't call at that time?
They outside right now.
You can hear Portia is trying to give the information the dispatcher is asking for, but she's also trying not to have the people outside that door hear what she's saying.
What's going on? Why is that happening? Because she know my brother and said that my brother did something to her and she swung on me and we was fighting. And the boy downstairs put a gun to my head. It was a male? Mm-hmm. Black, white, and Hispanic male. Can you hear me?
The dispatcher is asking, I need this information. Please tell me, please tell me. And she's just quiet and she says, they're outside. They're right outside. You can hear that fear in her voice.
All right, we're sending police. Thank you.
Dispatch immediately sends a unit to Portia's location, East 140th Street.
That area is definitely a location where you would have to look out for yourself.
But before they can get there, a second call comes in.
911 emergency, you need police, fire, or an ambulance.
At 5:20, she called back, and you actually hear the door being broken in, people going inside.
911 emergency, hello. Hello, you 911, is everything all right? Hello?
On that second call, you hear bang, 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 kicking in the door, and then you hear 7 gunshots in succession, and then the phone goes dead.
Calls back to Portia go unanswered. The second dispatcher sends another unit, this time responding to potential gunshots. Within 8 minutes of the 911 call cutting off, the police unit arrives on scene.
Police! Is anyone here?
Officers cautiously approached the door to the apartment, which shows signs of forced entry.
The door appears to have been kicked in. The frame was shattered in splinters.
And just inside the door, responders find the victim severely injured.
There is a woman's body on the floor. There's a pool of blood collecting around the body, and she is not responding.
Female, GSW deadhead. This is the caller. We haven't been able to ID this individual yet, but I believe she's a caller.
Quickly, the officers secure the scene.
There could be a person still lingering, which then escalates the situation for police. Once police determine that no one else is in the apartment, they tell the EMS that they can come up. They find that she's been shot multiple times, not only in the chest, but as well in the head.
They still did all they could to revive her, and they were just not able to do that.
Identification confirms the victim is indeed the 911 caller, 33-year-old Portia Woods.
To be on the phone and know that they still were not able to get to her quickly enough, I'm sure that that affected all of them from an emotional standpoint.
From the day she was born, Portia Woods was a ray of sunshine for her family.
She was a happy child. We spent a lot of time at my mother's house, which is her grandmother. She was around her cousins. She had, friends to play with.
Portia was like the little sister that I never had. She was like any other young girl, loved to play.
Portia had 2 siblings on her father's side and was especially close with big brother Chauncey.
She is kind of my light. Even when she got on my nerves, I would rush to see her if I could, at the drop of a dime. If anything went down, she was down to ride for you. Just a beautiful person inside and out.
We didn't really step outside of our environment. I guess at that time, you're shielded and you're sort of isolated by your family.
But life was not always so simple for Portia.
She was raised by her grandmother for the most part because our father was in and out of jail and her mom was in jail for murder and stuff for majority of her youth.
A lot of the things that or cards that she was dealt with could not have been easy.
By the time she was a teenager, Portia began to rebel.
As she got older, she kind of gotten away from us and gotten out in the streets and was doing God knows what. She just was a product of the environment she was living in.
When I think about some of the adversity that she may have encountered, she always had more of a positive attitude.
I would talk to her every now and then, and she would talk like she was okay and she was on top of everything.
By the fall of 2020, Portia decided to take her independence one step further and leased her own apartment.
Portia had got this apartment up on 140th and Kinsman, and when she first got it, I was like, Portia, you could live anywhere in the world. Why would you choose to live on 140th and Kinsman, you know? And she was like, brother, I'm just happy to have my own place, and I respected that.
When it was time to move in, Portia's brother was there to help.
I think I took her like a kitchen rack over there, microwave, hook her cable up. I was being a big brother.
Being able to provide that for yourself, that was something that was important to Portia, to be in her own space, and she cherished that.
But now, just a few weeks later, Portia's cherished new home is the scene of a horrifying crime.
She went through a lot, and she did not deserve to die in this way.
And when police descend to the downstairs apartment, they discover another mystery.
Hey guys, we got another open door here.
The door jamb was broken. You could tell there was forced entry.
Do Cleveland police have a violent rampage on their hands?
They're looking at potentially 2 different burglaries that happened in the same apartment building.
Police, anyone in there?
On September 23, 2020, 33-year-old Portia Woods has been found shot to death inside her Cleveland, Ohio apartment.
That first 911 call, you could hear people outside of her door. There's more than one. And she's talking about the people from downstairs. Well, then at 5:20, she called back, and you actually hear the homicide occur.
911 emergency, hello.
Now, Cleveland police have found signs of another break-in downstairs. They tactfully enter the apartment.
Yeah, it's more centric too.
Police, anyone in there?
The apartment is empty. Are Portia's neighbors her assailants or victims of a bigger crime spree?
The neighbor's apartment showed signs of forced entry as well. And so when police get there and they don't have an explanation.
Back upstairs, detectives continue processing the crime scene inside Portia's apartment, trying to piece together what happened.
She was shot 6 times, and it was basically at point-blank range. My experience being shot that many times, it's personal. They had to have known each other.
They kicked in this door with one goal in mind, and that was to kill Portia Woods, and that's exactly what they did.
The evidence also suggests that Portia had been waiting on her attackers.
She got yelled up at night, a hammer.
Yeah, she looked like she was ready for something.
There was a baseball bat that she had.
She knew she was in danger. Portia was pulling out anything that she had to be able to feel prepared and ready to fight off the danger that she was anticipating.
She knew these people were coming through this door, and she called back to 911 because she wanted to have a record of what happened to her.
The question now is, who was she waiting on? Police turned to neighbors for help.
Pretty early on, there was a mention of a neighbor that lived across the hall from Portia.
The neighbor, who identifies himself as Bus, says he witnessed Portia arguing with a man and woman hours earlier.
It was a fight in the hallway.
There was a fight that took place prior to those 911 calls. I think it was approximately 2:30 in the morning.
Those same 2 people had been to Portia's apartment earlier that day. Neighbors report that there had been a lot of commotion, a lot of shouting, arguing, and drama.
Bus tells police that things became physical between Portia and the mystery woman.
They actually get into a physical altercation that results in Portia pulling off a red wig.
I guess Portia's supposed to have whipped the girl pretty bad. And then the guy put a gun to her head and told Portia, we coming back, and we gonna come back, and we gonna kill you.
It's a lot of red hair right there on the windshield.
Do you think that belonged to the suspect earlier?
It might have been her hair.
We did recover a wig on the landing between the first and the second floor. It was a red wig.
Bus says he doesn't know the name of either suspect, but the woman looks familiar.
You've seen her before, though?
Yes, heavy set lady, probably about
She's the one that was
27, darker than me.
According to Bus, the couple left shortly after the fight. But then they returned at around 5 a.m., causing a scene.
That's when they went and they kicked in the door of Portia, and that's when they shot and killed her.
Bus says he did not see the homicide, but he did see the man and woman take off afterwards.
He said they got into a black vehicle and fled the area.
Before the black Malibu, about a 2008, had black rims on it.
She took off in the Malibu too?
Yeah.
The possibility of not one but two killers on the loose kicks the investigation into high gear.
We're gonna start looking for this black Malibu. I want to see if there's any cameras around.
The city of Cleveland has cameras throughout the city in certain neighborhoods at certain intersections.
It doesn't take long to spot the car.
A black Chevy Malibu, and we were able to pick that vehicle up at several intersections.
Police feel certain they're looking at the surveillance of Portia's murderers getting away. Will they catch up before it's too late?
They obviously fled the scene. They were nowhere to be found.
In September of 2020, Cleveland police are searching for two suspects in the murder of 33-year-old Portia Woods. The violent couple has fled the scene, leaving a trail of evidence behind.
The police have eyewitness accounts of a tall man and a short, approximately 5'5", dark-skinned woman leaving the scene in a black Chevy with dark rims.
Police looked at city cameras around this location and saw evidence of the dark-colored Chevy Malibu leaving the scene.
And on September 25th, 2 days after the murder, they locate the getaway car abandoned a few blocks away.
The black Chevy Malibu is impounded, and the police begin searching for any evidence.
Unfortunately, there's no smoking gun. But there are other pieces of evidence that could help police ID the killers.
Cigarette butts, water bottles, and touch DNA evidence are collected by CSI.
We were able to track down the owner of the vehicle that the license plate was registered to.
It came back to a female actually out of Columbus.
Detectives make the 2-hour drive to Columbus, Ohio, where they confront the owner of the vehicle. However, she claims to know nothing about a murder in East Cleveland.
She had told us that she had actually sold her car to someone else, but she allowed him to drive the car with her license plate still on the vehicle. There was actually no paperwork exchanged between the two. It was just a cash transaction.
The woman is able to provide a name for the man who bought the car, Toriano Williams. She says he lives with his mother in a Cleveland apartment on 140th Street.
Toriano's mother's apartment was the floor below Portia's apartment in this building, so they had that connection to being from downstairs.
It's the same apartment that showed signs of forced entry, but no signs of its tenants.
Now this case is starting to come together.
As police put out feelers for Toriano Williams, detectives get a visit from Portia's brother, Chauncey Bazell.
How you doing? How you doing?
Chauncey gives detectives an important lead. Portia had left him an unsettling message just hours before her murder.
You see it's 2-something in the morning that came through.
You let this hoe come up to my house and show this hoe where I stay at. Me and this hoe just got done fighting. Got it putting the gun on me. And you ain't gonna answer the phone?
Our relationship had took a downward spiral. She was cussing me out.
You cornball, Gary.
Tell me what she was upset about.
She's fussing at me, and she's saying that this girl came over to her house. And I say, what girl? And
Did you know?
I had an idea.
Chauncey says he believes the woman who confronted Portia is someone he'd met a few days prior to the murder. A woman who goes by Jay.
Chauncey says he met this woman the same day he was helping his sister move into the apartment.
I was leaving her apartment one day, and the girl was standing on the sidewalk. I was like, what's going on with you, lady? And she asked me if I was the Uber driver. And I was like, nah, but I'll take you wherever you're trying to go. And she was like, I'll pay you. And I was like, get on in, you know. And she said, right? Yeah, and I was trying to hook up with her.
According to Chauncey, they go and they run some errands, and they wind up back at some apartment complex on the east side of Cleveland.
She said she had to go down there to get some mail.
And Chauncey said he just happens to glance at the mail, and he saw her name.
She told me her name was Jay, but the mail that she left in my car said Jannie, Jannie Pace.
That's how we got the name Jannie Pace.
Once he knew her name, Chauncey said the two made plans to hang out a bit longer.
From there, they go to a hotel. They rent a room.
It was the Express Inn, Northfield.
But after only a few minutes in the room, Chauncey says Jannie abruptly left.
Chauncey said at some point, Jannie just runs out of the hotel.
When she left, did she leave in a vehicle?
I didn't see a vehicle. All I know is that when she left out the room, I sat in the room for about 2 minutes, and then it started to feel uncomfortable.
Chauncey says after a few minutes, he called Jannie and got another surprise.
The dude answered, and he said something mumbling, and I couldn't make it out, and he hung up.
Chauncey now has reason to believe the same man who answered Jannie's phone is the one who threatened his sister. Could that man be Toriano Williams?
That's why Portia called and left that voicemail to her brother saying, hey, this girl just came over with this other guy. I had to fight her, and they were threatening me with a gun.
Chauncey tells detectives he had done his own investigating around the building to no avail.
My sister Portia told me that she had a problem with the guy that stayed up under her in the building before, over things like they would lock her out of the building and things like that. So I was trying to find out if this was the same guy. Now, when I talked to the landlord of the building, he said that a dude didn't stay in the building. There was people in and out of the house all the time, and they moved out 3 weeks ago.
Toriano did spend some time there, some nights, at the Muller's apartment. But Jannie did not live there, and from what we know, Toriano was just there occasionally, did not permanently reside in that apartment.
Detectives feel certain they're on the right track, and they now have names for both of the suspects, Toriano Williams and his girlfriend, Jannie Pace.
Sir, we're going to continue to work this case and to try to find the people that killed your sister.
Will Cleveland police catch up to the modern-day Bonnie and Clyde before they get away with murder?
Every police officer in Cleveland is on the lookout for these two.
Fall 2020. Cleveland detectives investigating the murder of Portia Woods have zeroed in on two suspects, 26-year-old Jannie Pace and her boyfriend, 28-year-old Toriano Williams.
Now that the detectives have names of the suspects, a full-on search starts for Jannie and Toriano.
We gave it to our fugitive task force, which includes the U.S. Marshals.
As the task force scours the city for Jannie and Toriano, detectives begin digging into the fugitive couple's background. It's soon clear Jannie Pace is no stranger to hardship.
Jenny broke her leg when she was in her early 20s and developed an addiction to pain pills, which kept her in and out of recovery.
By her mid-20s, a series of failed relationships had left Jenny a single mom to 3 kids. It was around this time she began hanging around a friend's brother, Toriano Williams.
Janie had expressed to some of her friends that she had found happiness when she met Toriano Williams. He was charming, he was devoted to his friends and family.
Like Janie, Toriano had 2 children. It was a common bond that strengthened their relationship.
For a person who is a mother, when they find someone that has that same thing in their life, it can feel like you're really in love and that this is really someone you can create a future with.
But Toriano also had a dangerous side.
He was a little rough around the edges. He was known for carrying a gun. Janie was a little hesitant and nervous about that, but she got accustomed to it.
Eventually, Janie grew to love the sense of security and protection Toriano provided.
Ultimately, we all want to feel safe. We all want to feel wanted, and we like to feel chosen.
But had Janie chosen wrong when she got involved with Toriano Williams? Now, Cleveland investigators and U.S. Marshals are hot on the couple's trail.
We can only speculate that somebody capable of unloading a full clip of ammunition at a young woman was probably enraged. It is apparent that this was a person who had become unhinged.
Nearly 4 months after the murder, the task force finally gets a lead on Janie Pace's location.
Not only is Janie still in Cleveland, but not too far from where the murder took place.
Once we had her identified, we did put out a warrant for her, and the U.S. Marshals picked her up.
On January 26th, they sit down with Janie in an interrogation room. At first, she plays coy.
I was not involved in anything.
Initially, she lied to us, didn't have anything, didn't know anything about it, wasn't involved.
She also denies getting into a fight with Portia Woods.
I didn't get into no fight with that girl.
Detectives make it clear to Janie they know she's lying.
She called 911 about it before she died. You know 911 calls are recorded, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You got to get beyond that you weren't involved and all this stuff. You were involved, okay? So what's going to happen? You're going to get charged with this murder, and then you're going to sit in there for a year while we work on Toriano, because we know who Toriano is.
When detectives mention Toriano's name, Janie's demeanor shifts.
I'm scared.
She said that he was violent, and look what he did here. You know, he could do this to my children, to me, to my family.
Did you call the
police? Come on now, let's be serious.
I am being serious.
What I look like calling and snitching on this man or telling on this man he know my every move?
Backed into a corner, Janie begins to tell detectives her story.
I'm over it. I'm over it. Okay. I was there. We got into a fight.
That took a while for her to inch up closer and closer, and then finally admitting to being there when Toriano killed Portia.
He get this look in his eyes, and it's like he turned to somebody else.
After a nearly 4-month manhunt, police in Cleveland have arrested one of 2 suspects in the brutal slaying of Portia Woods. Now, in an interrogation room, Janie Pace begins to turn on her former lover, Toriano Williams.
She felt really guilty about what happened to Portia, but she was also really afraid of Toriano. So she remained on the run with him during those 4 months after the murder.
But Janie insists that she was only a witness to the murder, and she has no idea where Toriano is now.
I'm over it. I'm over it. Okay. I was there. We got into a fight. He did. I didn't have nothing to do with that.
Detectives pressed Janny about her encounter with Portia's brother, Chauncey Bizzell.
I mean, what does that have to do with this, though?
It has plenty to do with it.
I met Chauncey one time. He offered me to pay him for a ride.
Janny corroborates Chauncey's account that they ended up at a hotel together. But from there, her story differs.
He was trying to get me to smoke with her.
She said to us that she was a recovering heroin addict, I believe. And he was trying to force or pressure her into taking those drugs, which she didn't want any part of. She said that part of her life was over with.
He started making me feel weird and paranoid. People act weird off of that.
Portia's brother, she believed, tried to drug her with the intention of possibly taking advantage of her. So that's why she fled the hotel.
Janny says she'd called Toriano to come pick her up.
Do you remember Chauncey trying to call you to get you to come back?
Yes.
Who answered the phone when he called?
Tori.
And what did he say?
He took my phone and was like, it's over with. You ain't getting no. Stop calling this phone.
Now, both of their accounts are a little bit different as to what happened. Chauncey said that they had some drug activity together. She says that only he was the one using drugs. Regardless, they ended up at a hotel, and she ultimately called Toriano Williams and left that hotel with Toriano instead of staying there with Chauncey.
Janny admits when they saw Portia the next day, she picked a fight over the encounter with her brother.
There was an altercation between the two, and that fight was about Janny telling Portia, you know, your brother tried to drug me. That's where this whole thing stemmed from.
So the fight took place where?
In the stair rail. She was in the hallway just tripping.
Towards you or towards him?
She was talking to Tori when we was walking out the door. And then she started talking to me.
Talking like yelling? Was
yeah, she was hype. Real hype. She lunged at me.
But the fight ended abruptly when Toriano stepped in on Janny's behalf.
Toriano pulls out his gun and points it at Portia's face.
Janny says before the situation could escalate any further, she and Toriano left the apartment complex for a local hotel.
We was already leaving and going to the hotel. We always go to hotels to have sex there.
Janny explains that a few hours later, Toriano got a call from their neighbor.
Sometime between 2:30 and 5 in the morning, Toriano gets a phone call from the neighbor across the hall from Portia saying, hey, that girl just broke into your apartment.
I can't believe it's one in my house. That's all he was saying.
Toriano became really angry, really upset, and said that he wanted to teach Portia a lesson and headed over to her apartment.
Tori got in his car. He went down there.
While you were with him?
Yes.
He went back. Had his apartment been broken into?
Yes. I think the door was kicked in.
Sure enough, that door was kicked in. Janny said they'd go upstairs, and that's when they started pounding on Portia's apartment.
They went right up to Portia's door, banged on the door, causing Portia to call 911 the first time.
Minutes later, Janny explains that they kicked in Portia's door and found her yielding a familiar weapon.
She had no weapons of her own in her apartment, so she had taken a baseball bat from Toriano's apartment.
According to Janny, the sight of the stolen bat triggered Toriano.
It's like he started turning into the devil. He came around the corner with the gun in his hand with this look in his eye. I was scared to even say anything to this man.
She said that she didn't think that it was going to come to that point. She believed that they were just going to go over there and scare her. And I don't believe she thought that Toriano was actually going to do what he did.
Hell yeah, I went along with it. Yes, I did, because I was scared.
Did he say anything when he came back home?
He ain't say nothing, and that's what made me, he was just quiet as...
Janie remembers feeling really shocked when it happened and that both of them panicked and just fled the scene in the Chevrolet Malibu.
From there, they drove to Toriano's brother's apartment.
Did he say anything to his brother?
The only thing I heard him say is something get rid of the barrel. And he said chop up the barrel.
Janny says her and Toriano hid out at his brother's house for a few days, and then he dropped her off at her mother's house, abandoning the Chevy Malibu on the street.
All of it is random and dumb as... It wasn't even, I don't even know this girl. We had no beef, no nothing. What was we even fighting for?
It's a tragic situation.
Yeah, tragic is an understatement.
Yeah.
I think she was remorseful for part of it, for being there and seeing it happen. But I think she had a little bit of a difficult time coming to grips with the idea that she was involved in this.
Oh, I hate this man.
He's not a good person.
I hate this man.
Within hours of Janny's arrest, the task force gets word that Toriano has been spotted, just blocks from where he shot Portia Woods to death.
He was arrested later on that morning at about 11:30.
Unlike Janny, Toriano refuses to speak with police, other than to deny knowing anything about the murder.
What is it about?
There was an incident where a young lady got killed. You've been identified as the person. So we're wondering if you would like to tell us about what happened.
Beats me.
Is that where you're gonna get charged with aggravated murder? Is that what you're gonna go with? It beats me?
He was cool, showed no emotion whatsoever. In his interview with the police, very calmly, very coldly just said, I don't know what you're talking about.
Would you mind giving us a sample of your DNA?
You feel like you need it.
And at that point is when he totally shut down and asked for a lawyer.
Well, Mr. Williams, I wish you luck. So, you know, this is nothing personal, it's just a job. We can take care of it, all right?
With both Janny and Toriano behind bars, prosecutors build their case and face a conundrum.
The only evidence, aside from the 911 call and this car leaving the scene, was coming from Janny Pace.
Will she be able to help them secure a conviction against her former flame?
She said that she wanted to sit down and be a witness for the prosecution against Toriano.
In January of 2021, Janny Pace has given a full confession, saying that her boyfriend, Toriano Williams, shot and killed 33-year-old Portia Woods after an argument between the two women escalated.
All homicides are senseless. I mean, simply coming out of an apartment building, asking if you're my Uber, and getting into a car with somebody that you have no idea who they are, is what ultimately led to this whole series of events.
But aside from Janny's confession, investigators have little else to build their case against Toriano.
We knew from the shell casings that a 9mm was used, but the murder weapon itself was never recovered.
Fortunately, Janny is willing to cooperate with prosecutors to help put her man behind bars.
She said that she wanted to sit down and be a witness for the prosecution against Toriano. In exchange for that, she was hoping that she would get sentenced to a shorter amount of time.
In March of 2023, charged with aggravated murder and burglary, Toriano faces a jury.
Them kicking in Portia's door and then going into her living space with the intent to cause harm to her is itself its own crime. That's aggravated burglary, especially when they then commit that violent offense against her inside the apartment.
Janny takes the stand and maintains she had no idea Toriano was going to kill Portia, but she does express remorse for her part.
She did a fantastic job on the witness stand. She wasn't rattled, and she basically told the truth about what happened.
She said she wished she was strong enough to stand up to her boyfriend before the murder.
Toriano's defense team attacks Jani's credibility, but the jury doesn't buy it.
After a quick deliberation, Toriano was found guilty on all charges.
The judge sentences him to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years behind bars.
It was justice, but I think it wasn't enough. I think he should have got life without parole. He took Portia's life viciously, and he shouldn't be able to come out at all.
2 months later, Jani faces her own fate.
According to her deal, Jani is found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and aggravated burglary.
Jani Pace's sentence was 10 to 15 years on the manslaughter and the burglary counts, plus 3 years for the use of the gun, so it's 13 to 18 years in prison.
When we found out that she was handed down 13 years, it kind of surprised us all.
I think these are really challenging types of cases because, of course, you want to make sure that there's justice served when somebody's murdered. However, there's also this idea that Jani may have been in a relationship where she was not herself psychologically and she was not always able to make her own decisions.
For Portia Woods' family, no matter who's to blame, Portia's murder was preventable.
I just see all these lives that was affected by something that was stupid. This wasn't like a reflex thing or a crime of passion or anything. Everybody had a chance to think about this and get out of it. And that makes it even sadder, even more pointless.
Sometimes, chance encounters can lead to beautiful things. But when that chance encounter threatens the one you love, and on a path of vengeance, someone innocent may end up paying the price.
It's joy, but not joy in a happy way. More joy and a relief that none of the lies that she said the jury believed. Relief that justice has been, served. And that his family could, start the grieving process, start moving on.
Nobody won anything that night. 2 families lost their children forever. Yeah, she's getting jailed the rest of her life, but what did anybody win? It didn't bring Brian back.
The world lost a good person, a person that really cared about the people that were in his life.
Brian was crazy about that young lady. And that's the part that hurts. He was murdered by somebody he loved.
They realize that they are not sleeping with their knight in shining armor, they're sleeping with the enemy. November 3rd, 2009. It's a balmy Tuesday afternoon on the Bayou Grande, a popular Gulf Coast waterway not far from Pensacola, Florida. Among the many recreational boaters are 2 jet skiers speeding towards nearby Pensacola Bay. Suddenly, one of them spots something nestled in the tall grass on the banks of the inlet.
There was a large duffel bag that had washed ashore.
When the jet skiers pull up alongside the duffel bag, they realize some flies that are starting to accumulate.
This didn't seem right. They called the police department.
Moments later, officers arrive. They secure the area and wade into the murky water to more closely examine the blood-soaked bag. The police unzip the bag and look inside. What police discover inside this duffel bag would send a tidal wave of terror rolling across Bayou Grande. leaving in its wake a sordid tale of young love gone horribly awry.
It's shocking and it's heinous. I wanted to know what kind of a monster would do that.
Pensacola, Florida, a bustling city of the southwest tip of Florida's Panhandle. The place 25-year-old Samira Watkins calls home.
She was born and raised here in Pensacola, Florida. She was tall, thin, and beautiful.
Growing up, Samira's parents teach their children the value of hard work. It's a message Samira lives her life by.
She liked to be challenged. She liked to see how far she can go.
In addition to maintaining good grades in high school, Samira works part-time in a local fast food restaurant. She so impresses her boss that after high school, she's given a promotion.
She'd been working since she was 17 years old. She was now a manager.
During this time, Samira also meets a handsome young man named William Peters. The pair begins dating, and a year into their relationship, they have a child together.
Okay, ready?
A beautiful boy named Dante.
She wanted to be a good mother to her child. She wanted to support him.
And to support Dante the way she wants, Samira decides she needs to go back to school.
She was also going to a local community college where she was studying to become a dental hygienist.
She was really trying to make something of herself.
At just 22 years old, Samira's professional life is on the rise. But her romance with William is about to hit rock bottom.
Look, I'm not asking you anymore. You need to just... Oh, you think I'm playing with you, don't you?
The relationship was extremely abusive. He was controlling, demanding, intimidating.
William's abuse of Samira is so severe and so frequent, neighbors ultimately call police. William is arrested and sentenced to 2.5 years behind bars. Finally free from the abusive relationship, Samira makes a solemn promise to herself.
She stood by her word that she would not ever put her son or herself through that type of craziness again.
Samira desires a man who shares her work ethic, her ambition, and most importantly, who can serve as a role model for young Dante. But every man Samira meets seems more interested in a passing fling than in a committed relationship.
She tried and tried. She was about to give up. Okay, deal with anybody.
But then in July of 2009, Samira's luck changes. On her way to pick up a family member who works at the Pensacola Naval Air Station, Samira meets a tall, handsome military policeman working the gate. His name is Zachary Littleton.
Can I help you, ma'am?
Yes, I'm looking for the mess hall.
Zachary was a military police officer in the Navy, stationed here at NAS Pensacola.
I can ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can I have your phone?
Yeah.
Like young people do, they flirted with each other. They eventually exchanged phone numbers.
They immediately hit it off. Samira seemed swept off her feet.
I will.
Shortly after their electric first meeting, Zachary invites Samira to a party at a friend's house.
I'm doing right here.
I'm doing good. I'm glad you came.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
And despite the fact there are several attractive women present, it's clear Zachary only has eyes for Samira.
The words, the things he said to her was nice.
I want to be with you.
He was telling her that she's sexy. She was real happy.
Zachary seems to be everything Samira's been searching for in a man. Over the next few weeks, the relationship continues to blossom.
They spent a lot of time together. There was a lot of sex and a lot of nights out. Things you do in the beginning of a beautiful relationship.
But the young lovers' budding romance is about to be cut short in terrifying fashion. October 29th, 2009, 9:20 p.m. As dusk falls over the Florida Panhandle, Samira's in her house getting ready for a night out.
Hello? Hey, girl, I'm in here.
Samira asks her sister Sylvia if she'd mind babysitting her son Dante for the evening so that she can meet up with her boyfriend Zachary.
That's so pretty.
Thank you so much for watching for me.
I will.
All right, little man. Be good.
Fast forward to 11 a.m. the following morning. Samira has yet to return home. Sister Sylvia ended up staying over to take care of little Dante. But in the early afternoon, Sylvia receives an alarming phone call.
She was supposed to show up at work, but she didn't, and the job called. That's not like her not to show up. Let me call her cell phone and see if I can find it for you. I called her cell phone, I get no answer. And that one made me concerned. Samira, where are you? Your job just called looking for you. You didn't even show up to work. You need to come back as soon as you get this message.
Fearing the worst, Sylvia and Samira's cousin Jasmine head to Zachary's apartment to see if Samira is still there. But it soon becomes clear that neither Zachary nor Samira are home.
I was knocking on the door. I was worried. It was dark.
What Samira's family didn't know was the search for her and Zachary would unexpectedly shift and lead to a discovery more shocking than even the most calloused investigator could fathom.
It's heart-wrenching. Someone treated her like she was a piece of garbage.
When romance, hard-working single mom Samira Watkins and handsome naval officer Zachary Littleton have fallen head over heels in love. She had fallen for him quick and hard. He completely swept her off her feet. But on October 29th, 2009, both Samira and Zachary mysteriously disappeared. Everyone in Samira's family wonders where the two lovebirds might be.
Both Samira and Zachary have been known to be very responsible and reliable people. It would have been very out of their character for both of them to disappear without notice.
The fact that Samira hasn't called to check in on her son Dante is even more disturbing.
She had a son that needed her. There was a lot of crying going on.
48 hours pass and still there's no word from Samira or Zachary. Worried sick, Sister Sylvia decides to file a missing persons report.
I just basically tell them that my sister been missing for 2 days.
Veteran detective Jonathan Thacker is then assigned to Samira's case.
There's a lot of things that could happen to somebody. People do go missing from time to time. I'm hoping that Samira will show up someplace and that she'll be perfectly fine.
Since Samira told her family she was headed to see Zachary the night she disappeared, Detective Thacker's first objective is to confirm whether Samira ever made it to Zachary's house.
I was able to get a number for Zachary. I went ahead and called him, and he answered.
Police are relieved that one half of the missing couple is accounted for. Clearly distressed, Zachary says he's concerned by Samira's disappearance.
I asked him to come down to the police department to talk to me.
Sitting down with Zachary in an interview room, Detective Thacker asks him if Samira ever made it to his house the night she disappeared.
No. No, she didn't come over last night.
Which, according to Zachary, was actually a relief.
Just to be honest with you, I didn't have time for her.
Zachary tells Detective Thacker that he was slated to move into a new apartment the following week, and he needed time to pack up.
When was the last time you saw Samira? Last time I talked to her was Wednesday.
He did acknowledge that he saw her the day before, which was the Wednesday, October 28th.
But according to Zachary, the meeting on the 28th wasn't a date.
He was at home playing video games, and she showed up unannounced. Hey!
What are you doing here?
Well, I came to see you. Can I come in?
She wanted to speak to him and told me that he didn't want to talk to her.
The comment surprises Detective Thacker. By all accounts, Samira and Zachary were head over heels in love. That couldn't be further from the truth, according to Zachary.
I mean, I always wanted to get close. Trying to turn this into a relationship. I didn't want a relationship, so she just wasn't getting the hint. Littleton described he and Samira's relationship as really, there's no commitment at all. It was simply about meeting and having sexual intercourse.
Zachary goes on to explain that after their initial hookup, Samira began showing up at his house on a frequent basis. A move Zachary saw as a major turnoff.
How was your day?
You are obviously not getting it, are you? He had decided that he didn't even want to see Samira anymore, that she was getting too clingy. This is over.
What do you mean?
This relationship, us, there is no us.
Then
It doesn't matter. All you need to know is over.
According to Zachary, he tried several times to let Samira down gently, but she wouldn't take the hint.
He pretty much played her up to be this stalker who just became obsessed with him
That's when Zachary told Samira in no uncertain terms that their relationship was over.
What do I need to say?
Tell me what's wrong and I'll fix it.
You know what? Leave. Just leave.
According to Zachary, Samira was devastated.
She was upset. She wanted to work it out.
Finally, after several hours of begging and pleading, a tearful Samira asked Zachary to drive her home.
He said that he kept wanting to speak to him, but he just tuned her out and turned the radio up.
Zachary adds that he almost expected Samira to show up at his place the next day. But when she didn't, he figured she'd finally gotten the picture that he was breaking things off. Given his candor, police believe Zachary Littleton is telling the truth. But the interview has raised a few questions. For starters, why is Zachary's account of his relationship with Samira so drastically different from hers? And if Samira was so upset over the breakup, is it possible she took her own life? Just 2 days later, Detective Thacker gets an answer to that question. Or so it seems.
What we had was a missing persons case, and then all of a sudden, Samira reappears.
25-year-old Samira Watkins seemed to be living a charmed life. She had a budding career, a beautiful son she cherished, and a red-hot new romance with handsome new boyfriend Zachary Littleton. But on October 29th, 2009, Samira mysteriously vanished. After speaking with her boyfriend Zachary Littleton, Detective Jonathan Thacker learns that Zachary had just recently broken up with Samira.
All you need to know is it's over.
Tell me what's wrong and I'll fix it.
You know what? Leave. Just leave.
Detective Thacker is now entertaining the notion that after being dumped by the man she loved, a heartbroken Samira might have done something drastic.
We were very concerned about the time that had elapsed. It definitely heightened everybody's concerns for her safety.
But on the afternoon of November 3rd, investigators receive a call that will alter the search for Samira Watkins in an unimaginable way. It comes from the jet skier who has discovered a suspicious-looking duffel bag hidden along the shoreline of Pensacola's Bayou Grande.
There's a bag on the shore that's washed up, and there's blood around it. Looks like it's been here a while. It definitely looked out of place. Very large, and it looked like it had something in it.
Once they arrive on the scene, police carefully open the bag.
They unzip the bag and look inside.
What they discover is enough to turn the stomach of even the most seasoned investigators.
There is a deceased female that appeared to be African American. She had certainly started to decompose.
There were several layers of duct tape wrapped around the nose and the mouth.
Is this the body of Samira Watkins? The corpse is possible. But as they remove the body from the bag, investigators...
So she's missing an earring, got one on this side. We noticed that the female, she only had one earring in, and one earring was missing.
Detectives collect the earring as evidence. The body is then transported to the coroner's office to analyze the victim's fingerprints.
The medical examiner determined her cause of death to be asphyxiation, meaning that there was no oxygen to her brain. It's heart-wrenching. It is. She was a young lady working hard to make a better life for herself and her child. 5-year-olds only know their mothers. That's all they know. And for his mother to go missing is unexplainable.
On November 3rd, 2009, Samira Watkins' case is reclassified to a homicide. With a murder on his hands, Detective Thacker redoubles his efforts. And in speaking with Samira's friends and family, he quickly hones in on a possible suspect, a man with whom Samira had a tumultuous romance. But it's not Zachary Littleton. It's William Peters, the father of Samira's son Dante, and the man who'd savagely beaten her years earlier.
I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about.
Detective Thacker also learns that William was paroled just 4 months earlier.
The fact that he had just recently been released from prison added to our concerns.
He was the perfect suspect as far as the police were concerned.
Detective Thacker tracks William Peters to his mother's home and brings him in for questioning. Within minutes, it's clear William still carries a torch for Samira.
I would have it my way. Me and her would still be together.
Is it possible William tried to rekindle his romance with Samira, only to take her life when she rebuffed his advances? William steadfastly denies any wrongdoing.
I was working. A friend hit me up, told me they had a gig for me.
On the night of the 29th, he was with a crew doing janitorial work.
With William Peters' alibi appearing to rule him out, Detective Thacker and his team aren't sure where to turn next. That's when investigators receive a piece of evidence that threatens to blow the lid off the entire case. It comes from the coroner's office. After determining that Samira's cause of death was suffocation, they made another even more shocking discovery.
At this point, now police understand that she was pregnant.
According to the coroner, Samira was nearing the end of her first trimester, a fact that seemed to catch her friends and family a bit off guard.
It was a real big shock because she wasn't trying to have another child right now because she had her finna be 5-year-old son and she was in school.
Samira's sister and cousin tell police that the only man in Samira's life is Zachary Littleton, and that a few weeks after Samira and Zachary started having sex, Samira began experiencing morning sickness.
She was not feeling good to the doctor.
She finds out she was pregnant. It was a shock.
This relationship was very new, and it's certainly not something she was planning on.
Samira's family tells police possible her feelings for Zachary were so strong, she decided to keep the baby.
Please just sit down. We need to talk. Please just sit down.
But in speaking with some of Zachary's friends and neighbors, investigators learned when Samira told the man of her dreams she was pregnant, he wasn't exactly overjoyed.
I'm pregnant.
What?
I'm pregnant. Her baby.
You are not going to have that baby. You understand me?
When she tells him, he pretty much snaps. You telling her you don't want to have nothing to do with her or the child.
We're not having that baby.
No.
Investigators assume Zachary's reaction to Samira's pregnancy stemmed from the fact that he wasn't taking the relationship as
His excuse was that he lied to her to see if she was, in love with him for himself or if she was in love with him because of the fact that he was a Navy sailor.
Between Samira's pregnancy and Zachary's lies, the dashing military man is looking less like Mr. Wright and more like a possible murder suspect. But investigators still need some sort of physical evidence that links him to the crime. Little do they know they're on the edge of finding it, along with a secret that suggests Zachary had another, even more shocking motive for wanting Samira Watkins dead. 2 months after falling in love with handsome military officer Zachary Littleton, 25-year-old single mom Samira Watkins is discovered dead, and her remains stuffed in a duffel bag. In an attempt to track down Samira's killer, investigators have just uncovered 2 shocking revelations. The first is that Samira was pregnant at the time of her murder. The second is that Zachary Littleton, the man who recently broke Samira's heart, is not only the father of her unborn child, he's also secretly married to another woman. Taking a closer look into Zachary Littleton's background, detectives learn his wife is also in the military and has been stationed at a base in South Carolina for the last several months.
Zachary's wife has gone away from him for quite some time, and he takes it when the cat's away, the mice will play. He was having affairs, plural. He had a group of approximately 5 women that he basically rotated on a regular basis.
But according to Zachary's fellow midshipmen, Zachary's days of sleeping around were on the verge of coming to an end.
His wife was scheduled to move to Pensacola on November 6th of 2009 with their daughter. His days of being a player are over. There is no longer the ability to be the playboy that he once was.
Working in a military town like Pensacola, investigators know that if Zachary's wife got wind of the affair, it would be the end of more than just the marriage.
Under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, adultery is a crime. It's a career ender.
Unless, of course, Zachary could convince Samara to terminate her pregnancy.
You're gonna get rid of it, right?
What do you mean, get rid of it?
If she has an abortion, then she can disappear and he can continue with his life without having to explain why she's pregnant with his child.
Get rid of it. You can't have it. You cannot have that baby.
But the mere thought of having an abortion chills Samara to the bone.
I didn't make this child by myself. She told him, whether you choose to be a part of its life is up to you, but you are going to take care of this child.
You are not going to have that baby. You understand me?
I need you. We need you.
You are not having that baby. You understand me? Get rid of it.
It's our baby.
She wasn't going to have no abortion.
At this point, my gut started telling me that Zachary may have had something to do with Samara's murder.
But to tie Zachary Littleton to the crime, detectives still need proof. In an effort to find the evidence, they turn to Samara's cell phone records. They determined that shortly before she disappeared, Samara had received a flurry of phone calls from one particular caller, Zachary Littleton.
When Zachary was initially questioned by the police, he told them that he was actually relieved that Samara didn't come to his house because he needed to spend the rest of the night packing. However, when the police discovered his phone records, the entire case begins to change.
I was very concerned with his conflicting statements. Red flags are going up.
Using Samara's cell phone records, Detective Thacker traces the location of the final call between Samara and Zachary's phone.
The last call that she made pinged off of a tower that was located within...
That absolutely put Samara at Zachary's house the night of her disappearance.
It's compelling circumstantial evidence, but it's still not the physical proof investigators need to connect Zachary to the murder. Zachary initially stated that Samara had a friend drop her off at his house, but Samara's family says she drove to Zachary's house by herself that night.
Finding what happened to her car, how could it have possibly disappeared? And finding that car starts to give us the clues that we need to start unraveling this case.
Eventually, we did get a tip from a citizen who had located the car.
According to the report, Samara's car is parked in a rural area known as Pine Groves. As they race to the vehicle, investigators can't help but wonder if they're on the cusp of finally unraveling this twisted tale of jilted love, double lives, and the cold-blooded murder of a beautiful mother. Officer Zachary Littleton, she thought she'd found a man she could spend the rest of her life with. But after a series of shocking revelations, investigators now believe Zachary might have murdered Samara in order to keep their affair a secret and keep her unplanned pregnancy under wraps.
Does he admit to the adultery to his wife and risk the fact that he may be penalized by the military system? Or does he suddenly figure out a way to get rid of her? How does he get rid of Samara? How does he make her go away?
But with no physical evidence linking Zachary to the crime, investigators pin their hopes on finding Samara's missing car.
A car sometimes can be a treasure trove of evidence.
The theory is that after killing Samara, Zachary needed to dispose of her car to make it look like he never saw Samara the night she disappeared. A few days later, an anonymous tip from a local resident leads police to Samara's car, abandoned on a weed-infested roadside in the remote Pine Groves neighborhood.
When the police find Samara's car, it is found in this area that is so deserted and so isolated, whoever left it there had no intention of ever coming to get it. There's no public transportation that runs at that time of night when she disappeared, so we were fairly confident that they took a cab or got a ride.
With that theory in mind, Detective Shannon Fortenberry obtains local taxi records from the night Samara was murdered.
I got about 1,000 pages of taxi cab records, and through several days sifted through them.
On November 5th, 2009, Detective Fortenberry gets the break she's been waiting for.
The police discover a phone call to the local cab company. That call was received at approximately 4:20 a.m., and the call came in from Zachary Littleton's cell phone. I found where Zach had called from the Waffle House, just a couple of blocks from where the car had been found.
Armed with this evidence, Detective Fortenberry heads to the restaurant in hopes of obtaining further proof that Zachary Littleton had placed a call to a cab service from the restaurant.
Luckily, they have in-store video surveillance, and I was able to pull that surveillance up.
There's Zachary inside Waffle House, looking right at the camera as he makes the phone call to Yellow Cab.
Not only does the surveillance footage place Zachary in the vicinity of Samira's abandoned car the night of the crime, it blows his alibi wide open.
He represented to them that he had been home by himself, packing his apartment all night. And then here they find video surveillance of him at 4:20 in the morning in a Waffle House on the opposite side of town.
That just certainly pinpoints him and just makes him completely caught red-handed.
On the afternoon of November 6th, while Zachary Littleton is manning his post at the naval base, investigators execute a search warrant on his apartment. Within minutes, detectives uncover a chilling piece of evidence.
So we located an earring that was inside of Littleton's home.
Detective Thacker recognizes the earring immediately.
It had a design on it. It was a very unique earring.
When police discover Samira's body, they can only find one earring. When police find this other earring in Zachary's house, it seals the case for the police.
Finding the earring was extremely important. The earring was something that actually tied Zach to the crime itself.
In addition to the earring, detectives seize Zachary's laptop and deliver it to the crime lab, where an
caused an abortion or a miscarriage.
But the abortion searches are just the tip of the iceberg.
He's now starting to look at how he can get rid of her body and not get caught.
He really damned himself just by looking up things on the internet.
The searches on the computer screams to me that this was a premeditated killing of Samira Watkins. It's shocking to see that Zachary had so little concern or value for the life of another human being. And not only another human being, but another human being that was pregnant.
November 23rd, 2009. Police arrive at the Pensacola Naval Air Station front gate. The same checkpoint where Samira Watkins first laid eyes on the man she thought she'd marry. This time, the police are there to arrest Zachary Littleton for her murder.
Hey, Zachary Littleton.
Yes, sir?
Can you step out here, please?
You mind telling me what this is about?
You step out here, please put your hands behind your head. You're under arrest for the murder of Samira Watkins.
What?
Anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law.
The arrest was made with the help of NCIS and the base commanders. The move was disappointing, and a lot of them were still in disbelief.
Zach, he didn't really say anything. He seemed very somber.
Anyone who knew Zachary could not believe that he had done it. Zachary was doing well, and something like this just really blindsided them, and they honestly did not know what to do with it.
For Samira's family, the arrest is a bittersweet moment.
I was glad that they had got him.
Hands of her lover, the love of her life. This is so incredibly tragic.
In Samira's case, Zachary is charged with first-degree murder. The charges are serious enough to hold Zachary without bond in county jail. Nevertheless, prosecutors worry that the case against him will not hold up in court.
No one actually saw Zachary Littleton kill Samira Watkins. No one actually saw Zachary Littleton throw Samira Watkins' body into Valle Grande.
Nor does anybody know how a jury will respond when they learn the defendant is a military man with an otherwise spotless record.
They want confessions, they want CSI, and I went in there with a 100% circumstantial evidence case.
I was scared because he was going to get away with my cousin murder.
Little do they know that this is really just the beginning. The fireworks are just about to begin.
All Samira wife for her, her son, and the baby she had on the way. She thought she'd finally found that love with dashing naval officer Zachary Littleton. But after Samira's body was found stuffed in a duffel bag, police discovered video and circumstantial evidence that pointed to Zachary as a killer. And prosecutors have now charged this married military man with murder.
Here we have a case of a decorated military man murdering his mistress.
On June 28, 2011, the trial gets underway. One side of the courtroom is packed with Samira's friends and family.
I'm feeling nervous. We was going to fight to the end till we find out some justice.
But Zachary Littleton also has a large group of supporters, including his beautiful wife.
Zachary's wife stayed with him the entire time at the trial. She stood behind him. She was very supportive. It's not something that you would normally expect for a wife who just found out that her husband had been cheating on him while she was gone.
Prosecutors opened their case by asserting this is a simple case of premeditated murder carried out by a desperate man.
I gave them motive. Zachary had gotten a girl pregnant. It was detrimental to his marriage and it was detrimental to his career.
Not having that baby.
He decided to eliminate Samira and to kill her and her unborn child.
Prosecutors then paced the jury through their theory about how the crime went down. On the night of the murder, Zachary lured Samira to his home under the guise that he wanted to get back together.
Hey, babe. Hey, listen, I want to talk to you. Yeah, but come over. Yeah, I want to talk to you face to face.
She was elated when he said, "Come by my apartment tonight. Let's talk about our child. Let's see what we can work out together."
But the moment Samira entered his home, the much larger Zachary attacked her, strangling her until she was unconscious. He then duct-taped her mouth shut and stuffed her into a large duffel bag.
He appeared and drove straight from his apartment to the bridge that goes over the bayou.
He dumped the body, and then he abandoned her car. And then he took the taxi cab home.
To back up their version of events, the state presents Samira's missing earring that was found in Zachary's house, as well as the footage from the restaurant that put him in the vicinity of Samira's abandoned vehicle. But when it's the defense's turn, they hammer away at the lack of physical evidence, specifically the absence of DNA tying Zachary to the crime.
All the places where they took swabbings and they did not find Mr. Littleton's DNA.
As for motive, the defense concedes that Zachary is a womanizer, but that doesn't necessarily make him a killer.
An adulterous relationship, that doesn't mean he's guilty of murder.
In their closing argument, the defense plays their trump card: Zachary Littleton's spotless military record.
It's difficult for a jury to imagine someone of his caliber who has no prior history could actually do something so horribly heinous to another human being.
As both sides rest and the jury begins to deliberate, it's unclear which way the scales of justice will tip.
The jury had a challenge. Here they are looking at this man who, again, decorated military personnel, and his wife is unwavering in her support for him. And yet the prosecution presents evidence of this beautiful young murdered mother with all signs pointing to Zachary.
Surprisingly, just 3 hours after adjourning, the jury returns with their verdict.
Guilty as charged of first-degree premeditated murder. There was an overwhelming sense of relief for the family members and friends of Samira Watkins.
We were so excited, my heart stopped. Everybody started crying.
Upon hearing the verdict, Littleton turns to say goodbye to his staunchest supporter.
He was looking around for his wife, but she had left. He didn't wait around to hear his speech or his sentencing.
At his sentencing hearing, Zachary is allowed to address the court. Samira's family hopes he'll show remorse. They're sorely disappointed.
He gets up, he makes a statement saying that he didn't do it, and he hoped that they find Samira's killer so the family can have closure. I was like, what type of apology
was it? What this says is that Zachary is in complete and total denial over his committal of the crime and the true brutality that he actually committed.
The judge sentenced, but no punishment can ever make up for the love and lives he destroyed the day he murdered Samira Watkins.
The tragedy is that a beautiful, young, pregnant, 25-year-old girl with her entire future ahead of her, her life was cut short by someone who had absolutely no concern and no care for her. People all over the world fall in love. And when they fall in love, they don't think about, I may possibly die as a result of this love.
He was rebuilding his future in the wake of tragedy.
Katrina brought all this out here. He had his own life that he was restarting over in Texas.
He also found his voice along the way.
He started rapping his trials and days he's been through.
He was trying to pursue that as maybe a career.
A new love seemed to be a signal that the tides had finally turned.
They got to know each other really well.
He was happy. I always wanted to bring her around.
Until rough waters threatened to upend his life again.
This was a very unique and different storm. It was powerful, and it kept on going inland. It was crazy. He just went silent. Was this another missing person lost in Hurricane Harvey?
The evidence would reveal something far